I actually think these words are sort of self-explanatory, so I'm just going to go through it, and if I feel the need to kind of point something out. So, in 1981, all statewide officers could have served 2 consecutive terms. That was put up for an amendment, but it was rejected by Kentucky voters 5 times. 1925, 1927, 1929, 1943, and 1963 voters rejected amendments that would have completely or partially altered limits on the salaries of public officials, but they ratified a 1949 amendment that substituted higher limits for these salaries. Another rejected amendment would have authorized the General Assembly to enact a compulsory workers' compensation statute in 1943. Compulsory workers' compensation statute. So I'm not for sure. No matter what, workers have to get paid. And then they ratified amendment to substitute higher limits for these salaries. So the 1949 is actually the limits that people go by, the dollar value. I think only $5,000 back then, but now it's like used the purchasing power from 1949 for today. In 1939, the Court of Appeals kept off the ballot an adequately publicized amendment that directed the General Assembly to provide aid to dependent children and the needy blind. So that's incredible fucking thing. So basically they rejected because I guess there's some fucking Court of Appeals. The Court of Appeals rejected it because they said it wasn't publicized enough. But who gives a fuck if it's publicized? The voters said, give the poor fucking children and the blind some goddamn fucking help. They're blind, they're poor, they need some help, give them some money. That's what the voters voted on in 1939, the rise of Hitler, incidentally. So the Court of Appeals, consistent with the rise of the fucking Mein Führer, the chancellor of fascism, kept off the ballot, independently publicized, directed the General Assembly to provide aid to dependent children and the needy blind. In 1960, it invalidated a ratified amendment that would have established a sales tax to fund a veterans bonus because the objective was properly addressed by a statute. So 1960, it invalidated a ratified amendment. So the voters voted, it became ratified, then the fucking Court of Appeals invalidated it because they said that there's a statute that already says that sales tax could fund a veterans bonus. And so either they weren't doing it, the statute wasn't strong enough, or they just, you know, what the fuck happened? They just fucked over the veterans again and said, hey, you know, let's not change things, you know, everything's cool, man. Don't give the power to the people. Because that's the biggest threat. You know, politicians just want to get reelected over and over again, and the people are a threat. They don't, you know, when they have people knocking on their doors, they have to do shit. They got to fucking care about things, talk to people. They don't want to do that. They like the coast, you know. Go in for 60 days, vote here, vote there, fucking make some jokes, fucking hit on the fucking interns, go home, act like they done something, take their $15,000, and then go to their real jobs at Toyota and make sure they earn a living. So, you know, what the fuck do Kentucky legislators actually give a shit about the people? Why would they? We're not supposed to be participants. We're just supposed to be spectators. And they like it that way. They like us to stay at a distance, not to be in their faces. 4 proposed amendments concerned appropriations for education. In 1941 and 1949, voters approved amendments that reduced the percentage of state appropriated funds to be divided among county school districts on a per capita basis. They had rejected such a proposal in 1921. In 1953, voters ratified an amendment that repealed provisions mandating per capita educational appropriations. 2 ratified amendments specified that legislators in 1979 and all officials except for state officers in 1992 a non-omnibus reform be elected to even number years. The former amendment authorized the legislature to stretch its regular 60-day session over a period of 3.5 months. So it's not 2 months. They can go be there till in the middle of April, all of March, and into the middle of April. In 2000, voters approved an amendment that provided for annual legislative sessions after rejecting such an amendment in 1969, 1973, and 1998. Voters also rejected amendments allowing the legislature to call itself into extraordinary session. So it rejected amendments allowing the legislature to call something too. So whenever they want to call themselves up, I don't even know why they put that shit to the fucking voters. They don't give a shit about what the voters think. So it just seems like some partisan trickery. You know, one of them says, hey, I want to do this, and the other side, oh, you're not allowed to do this. It's the Constitution, and here's why. Well, I'll put it to the voters. We'll see what they say, right? And so So people just need to be headstrong, know what the Constitution does, know what real life is, get the things actually fucking passed. Permitting the legislature to reject administrative regulations issued by the executive branch. So they also rejected amendments that allowed the legislature to call itself into extraordinary session in 1990, and they also in 1990 permitted the legislature. They rejected amendments that permitted the legislature to reject administrative regulations issued by the executive branch. So they wanted the legislature wanted to reject administrative regulations issued by the executive branch, but the voters rejected it. So really lofty, crazy fucking language, and the voters probably didn't understand it, and they probably understood the legislature having more power than the governor. No, not going to do that. After rejecting amendments that repealed the two-amendment restriction, 1929, 1937, and 1951, an amendment that would have increased the restriction to 5, 1963, voters in 1979, Kentucky voters in 1979 ratified an amendment that increased to 4 the number of amendments that could be voted on in a single election, and provided that a single amendment could cover several related subjects and alter more than one section of the Constitution. So we do have referendum and not initiative, but we got referendum. So referendum is government-induced, initiative is people-induced, and so we have referendum in Kentucky, but it's very hard to come by, very hard to get. The Constitutional Convention is basically unfathomable, virtually unthinkable. But you have 4 amendments that you're allowed to propose every year or every 2 years to the public. So it can be voted on in a single election, and provided that a single amendment could cover several related subjects and alter more than one section of the Constitution. So one amendment could really do a whole bunch of fucking damage, but now you have 4 amendments, so you could do 4 small amendments, and you could actually give the Kentucky people some choice. And frankly, there should be some fucking decision for the Kentucky people every fucking year. If you're a legislator, how do you not get, you only got 4 chances, 4 fucking issues. That's the only issues that the Kentucky people are allowed to vote on. They basically want you to vote for the person. Vote for me. I'll be the best damn mayor. And then once I become mayor, then I got the power. So fuck you. I'm not going to do anything you said. What you did was you gave the power away. So when I got your vote's the only power that you had over me. When I got your vote, then you have no more power over me to get me to do what you want me to do. So hopefully I'm just a good fucking person, and I'll go through an agenda that'll help everybody, but I don't have to. And that's if I become mayor. So I'm not even a mayor. This would be somebody that would be elected into power. They don't have to do any of the promises or anything that they said during the campaign, which is kind of fucked up. But the people will remember the things that they said. So if you have something that's easy to remember, contract with America, no new taxes, he kept us out of war, those types of promises, people tend to remember. And so that's sort of, that's how our system works. You can say whatever the fuck it is you want to say. Once you get into power, then you can do whatever the fuck you want to do. They take the power away, so we vote on the people, and we don't actually vote on issues. It would be a nice change of pace to actually get to vote on some issues around here. We only get 4 fucking issues that will be put on the ballot every year. I'd like to see 4 issues, 4 amendments on the ballot this year too. So, an amendment ratified in 1975 abolished the old court system and then established one of the nation's most moderate and efficient unified judiciary. So 1975, this amendment overhauled the whole judicial system, okay? The entire judicial system just fucking overhauled. In 2002, voters approved an amendment to Section 112 that permitted the Kentucky Supreme Court to designate one or more divisions of a circuit court within a judicial circuit as a family court division. So 2002, we created the family courts. Yeah, right. So now we overhauled the judicial branch in 75. In 2002, we've added the family court division within the circuit court, within the judicial circuit. So that's actually the felony branch is where the fucking family court division is. It should be in district court. Family court should be in district court because it's not circuit court type. Very few things should go through circuit court. I mean, the fucking felonies. I mean, first you got to get the grand jury, right? The Section 11 or 12 of Kentucky's Constitution. Which one is the Section 12? Section 12 is the right of a grand jury, right? So if you're going to be charged with a felony, you need to have the grand jury to indict you first. 12 people indict you, and then once you're indicted, then it goes to a circuit court. It goes to a circuit court hearing, and that's for felonies. Anything else should be in district court. So the fact that family court is in circuit court, Kentucky voters don't know what the fuck they're doing. Rand Paul bullshitted Kentucky voters, and so either the 25% that do vote are easily manipulated and swayed, or they are getting a taste of power, so they're doing okay. Which is most likely or they're just being, you know, straight up manipulated. Oh, I care about you, you're just like me, vote for me. But 75%, the vast majority of Kentuckians are not voting, and that's got to change too. If they were voting, then I would have better trust in my politicians and the decisions that they're making. So, 2 ratified amendments concerning alcoholic beverages. The first prohibiting their manufacture, sale, and consumption in 1919, beginning of prohibition, then another repealing that prohibition in 1935. Same shit happened with the U.S. amendments. 2 other ratified amendments concerning gambling. One authorized the legislature to establish a lottery, 1988. So there's been anti-lottery things on the ballot or in the Constitution, but 88 they changed it, so now we can have a state lottery, which is supposed to help the education system. The other permitted the legislature to establish and regulate charitable gaming. So charitable gaming, that feels like casinos are already here and legalized. I'm not sure why Beshear came in with that issue when he first became governor, so I don't know why that hasn't happened. It's almost like Obama's Guantanamo Bay. Their biggest fucking issue that they came in on, they don't even do shit about. So talk about promising people and not doing the shit. And, you know, even if they do promise it, then you have to kind of pressure them to do the things that they're supposed to do. One fascinating promise that I'm glad that Ryan Morris and Josh Neal both did Shop with a Cop. And so Shop with a Cop, I think, is excellent because you actually get that connection with young people. And so you get to see them when they're little. How are you going to shoot, you know, a person that you saw as a baby, you know, in Pampers, running around and shit? If you have to murder somebody like that, you fucked up, not as a cop, but also as a society. So the fact that you'd have to kill some of, you know, one of your own, you fucked up. And so that's a good, Shop with a Cop was a promise that was made before the campaign, and it was one that was delivered on. So, you know, the pictures were wonderful, the kids look extraordinarily happy, and, you know, the cops look like good people. They look like they give a shit about the general community. So overall, it's a win-win for everybody. In 1915, voters ratified an amendment permitting the use of prisoners for road work. So, you know, there's legalized slavery that happened in 1915. Since slavery was illegal, they had to figure out some way to make it legal again. So once you get prisoners, then you can use them for slavery to work on the roads. The Court of Appeals had declared a similarly previously approved amendment invalid in 1914 because it had been invalidly publicized. So they says, no, you didn't publicize it right. So they actually called it, you know, they struck it down, but they got it passed again. Other ratified amendments authorized telephone companies to buy or lease competing companies under certain conditions. So other ratified amendments authorize telephone companies to buy or lease competing companies so they're allowed to monopolize. They're trying to get the telephone companies not to monopolize, so that would sort of be like the internet companies today if they all got together. They directed the legislature to authorize old age pensions in 1935, and they guaranteed that receipts from certain tax sources should be placed in the highway fund, 1945. So, you know, more money for the highway fund. They authorized old age pensions, so Kentucky gets old age pensions in 1935, so they're passing out fucking pensions to everybody in Kentucky. 1935, Social Security, Medicaid, or Medicare, Social Security, that's old age pensions. Kentucky passed one in 1935. In 1988, voters ratified an amendment that limited the use of the broad form deed as a legal way to strip mine coal. So you could strip mine coal as long as you intentionally said that's what you was going to do. But if you did the broad form deed, if you just said I buy this fucking place and just buy all of it out, you couldn't strip mine. You had to say you was going to strip mine if that's what you was going to do. So those who want to strip mine Kentucky Hills had to specifically state it. That's what the Kentucky voters in 1988 wanted. The 1996 voters approved an amendment that eliminated from Section 180 of the Constitution language that authorized local governments to levy poll taxes, and also deleted language from Section 187 that provided for the maintenance of racially segregated schools. So 96, we finally got rid of having racially segregated schools. You know, that was a good call, right? 1976, we actually passed the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. Finally, 20 years later, we passed We changed the language in the Constitution to allow women to vote in Kentucky's Constitution. So we do all this shit, 20, 30, 50, 100 years later. It doesn't, the things happen just like molasses around here. It's just progress happens so slow, if it even happens, which most of the time it doesn't, right? In 88, they did stop strip mining coal unless they actually specifically put it out there to do it. But then they, stopped having racially segregated schools in 1996. Come on, Kentucky.